And that's the end of it. There's nothing else. Hello guys, hi, Hanyo here, and I just really thought about this the other day. I just wanted to talk about, give my year long review for the season 2 finale of Interview with the Vampire. I guess you want to call it, it's technically the series finale for Interview with the Vampire because next season is going full on titled The Vampire Lestat. It feels fun talking about this again. I now give a explanation here. I did record a review, what we're gonna call it, back when back when this episode first aired. I just didn't like the audio when I went back just to listen to the audio for a quick smidge. I didn't like it. There's something about it. I couldn't stand it. Same thing why I didn't do a reaction to the the teaser trailer for Interview with the with for season 3. I recorded it, rewatched it just for a second, then I couldn't release this. It's one of those moments where I just hate my voice so much I just shelved the whole video. But yeah, I'm not sure I want to really talk about it. I didn't really think about how I was gonna structure this review. It's just, I'm just gonna say it. I love this episode. I thought this was a great way to end the season, to end this retelling of the story. Though there were some things that I did not fully like and agreed upon. So the episode starts off picking up sometime after episode 7 by something Armand says later in the episode, probably months. Louis been locked in that box for months, starving, getting no blood whatsoever. And Louis in the present, he's giving this monologue about how he's keeps going back on the choices he made that led him to this point, particularly meeting Lestat. What if he met Lestat a decade or two later? Would he would have resisted him? Would any of this come to pass? But blurring over what ifs is going to change the fact that Claudia is dead. It's not going to change the fact that he's suffering and dying. And Jacob Anderson, he can deliver these speeches so amazingly, and paired with Daniel Hart's music, it's beautiful. It's beautiful and heartbreaking. And then we kind of go with how, it's different but similar to the books, where Armand eventually saves Louis, he gets him out of there, and then Louis shovels away to plan his revenge. And it is a little different here because in the book, Louis was a little bit more. Oh, he was enraged, but he was more sound in mind. And here we have Louis hallucinating his victims while he plans out the massacre of the theater troupe. And it's very funny. It's very dark and in a it's kind of dark and silly kind of way because how he is talking to the farmer he killed, which I kind of like, but I also don't like how they use that to change um his weapon of choice. Cause the hallucination's like, you're not a farmer, go for the machete. Because Louis does have a scythe like he does, he's supposed to have in the books, but they changed it to a machete, which I really was happy for a second. But we don't really get to see him use it. We don't really get to see him use it. I think that's like my first big complaint about this episode is that we get the massacre, the murder of the Theatre di Vampia. And it's, well, is fantastically shot. I love the movements that they chose. I love the angles that they chose. I love the little bit the practical fire effects that we got to see. It just feels very underwhelming compared to the novel and compared to the movie adaptation. Because in the well, I guess I can say because the movie adaptation basically kind of copies the novel pretty well, adds some things to it, but yeah, because I'm trying blanking on the novel, but like in the movie, when the vampires start setting on fire, they start launching themselves out of the coffins. Yeah, there's a one shot of the vampire just melting in the flames. You get a really good sense of the chaos of everything being burnt and destroyed. And here, though, we get the camera is settled on Louis and onto this mirror, so when the fire goes out, we don't get to see a lot of the destruction. We see one vampire fly out of the coffin, but we don't really see them be melt or burn to ash. You see Louis decapitate that one older vampire whose name escapes me. We don't really see it's kind of off screen. Because after we hear the we do a fade out to a shot of the theater burning out from the outside. And well, I do love how Louis dispatches of Celestin, Estelle, and Santiago, which is fan freaking tastic. Better than, I would say that is truly better than the novel and the movie. I just don't like how because in the novel and the film, the Fiat di Vampire troupe, they are sadistic evil assholes who got what they deserve. They're also kind of very side characters. You know of them, you know about them, but you don't. That they're not like character like they're side characters. They're background characters. The show did a lot of expanding on the troop, so you get to know a little bit more about them. Get to They'll get a little hints of their personalities, even the ones that we don't really know that much about. So when we get to the theater burning down, you're hoping to see Louis just go, fully let loose his vampire nature, go on a killing spree. I mean, he has a machete in this version, so I was hoping he'd go, yeah, a little like Jason Voorhees. But we don't see any of the deaths like that. I mean, Estelle, Celeste, love that. Love how it was executed. I love how we get to see Louis' powers growing in the scene. How he baited and manipulated Santiago into literally turning his back on him. Fantastic. Oh, that was amazing. I just wish all the other characters, all the other theater members, we got to see at least some of them kick it. Because they portrayed him to be such horrendous monster, especially in episode 7 during the play. You thought you thought we see them get, I don't know, rightfully tortured, at least burning up miserably. I thought that was, I think the show could have used that. Sorry, just got a drink. And then my brain got foggy for a second. I'm not gonna edit this out. I don't have time to edit things. But the scene after that, the scene where we have Louis and Armand speaking in the old hotel room, it's well, Armand gives his explanation for turning on Louis and letting the coven do the play. It's I think I talked about this in my earlier reviews for this. It was a year ago, so I don't even remember. But how they kind of portray Armand in the show, the way he tricks Louis, manipulates Louis, and everyone else is very different. Armand in the book, he's a little bit more. How can I say this? It's been a while since I just fully interacted with the novel material. But yeah, in the books, if I remember correctly, Armand did everything he could to get Louis to come with him, to be with him, to leave Claudia so he could have Louis all to himself. Because in the novel, Louis didn't fully make Madeleine on his by himself. Like it wasn't his full decision. He pushed Louis to do it. He implanted the thought in his head. He made Louis more susceptible to the idea of making Madeleine. Here, though, Armand's he's basically saying that he could not trust that Louis would fully be to him. He could not trust Louis's love. So that's why he sided with the Coven and Lestat. I think I peeked the microphone there. And it's a very odd choice. It feels out of character, but also doesn't feel out of character. Need to finish reading the Chronicles. Need to go back and reread the Vampire Armand to fully get this, because I feel like I'm missing something here. Yeah, but the whole thing where Armand's like, well, I could not trust that you would be with me. I'm sorry. It's like, well, how long were you planning? How long was this planning this? The night Madeleine was made? And, well, they don't confirm the timeline on this. That when Madeleine and Claudia left Paris and then came back and were adopted, it seems to be there's like at least a month or two in between passing. So yeah, even Louis and everybody's like, you had such a long time to tell Louis this was going to happen. We had such a long time to make a plan with Louis, to make a plan with Claudia and Madeleine, and yet you did nothing. They're in my coven of 200 years. A ancient vampire who's so powerful he can manipulate the minds of humans and vampires on a whim. He can freeze time for all the mortals in the area, but you couldn't do anything, not at all, even during the play. It's kind of odd, Armand. Kind of odd, Armand. And then we get to probably the second best scene in this episode. Probably the third. I don't know. There's so many good scenes this episode. Louis and Armand confronting Lestat in Magnus's tower, and this is such a beautiful scene. This scene is kind of an original to the show, but it's also paying a little bit of homage to the scene in The Vampire Lestat, where Lestat and Armand meet after Claudia's death. But here, the context is a bit different. Because in the novel, Lestat was still weak and bitter and basically a shriveled up corpse, because he was still healing from all the wounds he suffered from Claudia and Louis back in New Orleans. And how that scene ended was Armand pushing Lestat off the tower and breaking most of his bones. Here, though, Lestat is still very much intact. He is mumbling to himself while Louis and Armand walk in. I love Lestat. Where Louis like, is this where he kept you? Tortured you? No. He had a knack for design. No dirty blondes over there. Nordic blondes over there. Right where the gremlin stands. And Armand's face. I like well, Lestat is saying like he's here to think about himself, think about his origins. You think he's gonna go on this epic monologue about self pity and realization, and Louis just cuts him off. Why you why you burn your daughter alive? Why you cross an ocean to burn your daughter alive? Why you cross an ocean, rehearse a play that will burn your daughter alive? The pain, the rage, the detachment in Jacob Anderson's performance. Ah, it was so good. And the little standoff, because Lestat's like, you can't kill me. You can try, but you can't kill me. I got the blood of Magnus in me. Magnus burn. And then he says it. He says her name. I got the blood of Akasha in me. And the look he turns to Louis, where Armand is like, who's that? He doesn't know who that is. Now we got little hints of Akasha and Inkel. So spoilers. We got little hints to Akasha and Inkel throughout the first and second season, where Lestat briefly mentions that their iconic name, those who must be kept. Louis back in the beginning of season 2, where he says, he's arguing with Claudia. He's like, "What are you looking for, Claudia? Are you looking for God? Are you looking for Adam and Eve of the damned?" So he has some really cool mentions and hints to them, but to actually hear Akasha's name out loud, um, it's also funny too because we don't really know. Sorry about that. We don't really know who's playing Akasha yet. Supposedly she's been cast, but they're keeping that tight lip for now. Which, if they're going with a well-known actress or someone who is kind of new, I hope they just don't say it. I hope they just don't say it. I want the first time we meet our new Akasha for it to be that weird stone statue. But the thing does get me right here is where Lestat says, because Armand's like, Magnus is burned, and Lestat's like, oh, I have the blood of Akasha in me. And then he says, um, what they want to do is quite impossible. That I have to be willing, and I'm not in the mood. Which that seems kind of implying that he just can't die. Like you can't burn him to death. I mean, yeah, you probably use sunlight. That might be a little different, but he can't really burn to death. Now this is kind of odd because well, Lestat would eventually reach that level of immortality near the end of the third book. In this part of the timeline, he really should still be vulnerable to flames. I mean, he does have a slight resistance because of Akasha's blood, but not to this level. I mean, and again, he might be bluffing. He might be bluffing. It is Lestat after all. But then Louis pulls, I can almost describe as the ultimate bitch move, but also kind of power move. I'm not sure what you call this, where he just extinguishes his fire and just kisses Armand in front of Lestat. He's like, I'm gonna be with him now. Like, he's my man, you're nothing to me. And while I'm still happily with him for another 100 or 200 years, you're gonna be all alone with what other pathetic version of me you find out there in the world. Which I think was this thing the showrunner said, or somebody, or Dai said that that Louis and Armand's relationship is nothing but the world's longest rebound. and and Armand knows that's how it started. And he doesn't care. He doesn't matter. He doesn't mind that he's nothing but a rebound. But what Lestat says there. Oh, I wonder how long it'll last. And the looks, the facial acting on Assad. I was forget how to pronounce his last name, but the facial expressions that man can make, I love it. I love it. The look he gives to Lestat. But then we cut back to the modern time, and it pretty much ends kind of like the novel did, where Armand and Louis basically said they traveled to Egypt and here and back again, which is pretty much close to the novel where Louis and Armand did leave Paris together and they traveled the world a bit. I guess where it kind of breaks off though, because in the novel, Louis and Armand eventually go to New Orleans because Armand says, I want to see the place where you grew up. And then shortly after that, they break up. Here, though, they never went back to New Orleans. It seems to be that Louis never returned to New Orleans at all in those 77 years, and eventually they settle in Dubai. I guess I'm not sure when. And that seems to be the end of the interview. But before they could all sign those awesome checks and have dinner and be on their way, Rashid brings Daniel a little envelope, a little something something. Because we saw earlier in the episode he's been chatting with Raglan James, trying to get something we're not exactly sure of. And I love how the writers, I guess they do kind of a miscorrect on themselves, a little correct on themselves, because the first question Daniel asked, how the heck was Lestat able to telepathically talk to you during the second episode? Because Maker and Vampire shouldn't be able to do that. Lou's like, I don't know, guess he just whispered it to me. I got it wrong. And then the questions start piling up. Like, how many people did Lestat mind fuck out of your apartment back in the 30s? Because it seems like to me that there could have been another person in the theater that could have saved you instead of Armand. And Louis' face, he's like, Daniel, come on, stop, please don't bring that up. Oh no, no, no! It's like you said, he loved Louis. He would have done anything to save him. And then this old mother Daniel, he pulls out the script for the jury, for the execution. He's like, "Oh look, here's a script with edits on the marge line, just like Armand likes to make." And the tension of Louis just looking at the script, going over it, seeing Armand's little nicks and edits. I love it. And then we get our first good glimpse of Lestat. Not Lestat as through Armand and through Louis, but sorry, a genuine flashback where he seems to be being forced to partake in them practicing for the play. And when he's like, oh, and how will you keep Claudia settled during your feet what's the word? How will you keep Claudia still for your dumb little play? The judges will falter her mind with their powers. And Lestat gets so pissed. Like, you do not know Claudia's strength. And the anger, how he throws the paper. Our first glimpse of Lestat outside of someone else's point of view is him defending Claudia. In the line reading by Daniel. Where does the bullshit stop, Armand? Amadeo, Alun. Like this whole scene is just awesome. Just Eric, his line delivery, the facial expressions on Asai going from scared to panic to piss and back to loop again and again and again. And the ultimate look he gives to Daniel right before he runs after Louis. God, I was so scared when I first watched that scene. Like, oh god, Daniel's gonna die. Like, I know the book said he's not going to die, but God, it felt like he was about to die right there. And the amount of force Louis was able to hurt Armand was insane. Like, I know Armand technically probably wasn't fighting back when Louis pushed him, but still, he looked so damaged right then and there. I love that Real Rashid just left. Our Louis just calling for like Rashid, Rashid. Yeah, he left. Like he he knows how powerful his vampire bosses are when they're just comfortable and just floating around reading. He doesn't want to be there when they're pissed off at each other. And I love the little the Louis gives Daniel a bit of protection there. He's like, he's telling to Armand, you cannot hurt him. If you dare hurt him, I'm going to kill you. Which, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think I made this connection um the first time I watched this, but it's how it's different how because how the interviews end. The first time the interview happened back in the 70s, it ended with Louis attacking Armand. I mean, Louis attacking Daniel and Armand saving him. And here, though, is Louis protecting Daniel from Armand. And I loved it. I loved it. Because, well, it's a very odd friendship. You can see him and Louis building up this, as one of the producers said in the episode credits, that this weird little brother, big brother energy that they have for each other. I love how Louis sets the laptop on fire. Like, yeah, I don't think I want the interview to get out, but it got out. It got out. And then we transition to this beautiful shot of Louis in this Uber, and he's heading back to New Orleans for the first time in since 1940. He goes on this little murder tour where this guy's like, come on, tell the crime dog. And like they're showing their old house, their old townhouse. And it's so funny because he starts giving off this blatant kind of lie and misremembering of the events of the 30s and 40s where Lestat went by like what do you call him, a monsieur something like some dumb name, and then Louis and Claudia were voodoo people who were just living in the house. And it's it's kind of like that in real life too, because the truth changes. I mean, people was like, "Oh, their truth, your truth, and the actual truth," but no, the truth can very much change depending on who's looking at it and who's telling the story, because their whole lives in that townhouse have been told multiple times through multiple mouths, through multiple points of view, to the point that the new truth is something that barely barely connects to what really happened. And it also kind of goes back to the what's the word I'm looking for, the tagline to season 2, that memory can be a monster, that memory is the monster, that things just can't be fully remember, things change, or I don't know, maybe it happens when your abusive boyfriend brainwashes you for decades. But this is where we kind of start to realign with the novel, where Louis spots this vampire catching rats, and he follows him to this old broken down house, and that's where he finally meets Lestat. Now, this is kind of different because this is kind of like a new scene, but they're also combining two scenes from the first and second book. Because in the first book, there's a scene where Louis falls as vampire and he meets Lestat after almost like 100 years. They talk, they reconnect, and Louis just leaves Lestat broken and not caring what really happens to him afterwards. And if you watch the movie, they perfectly adapt that scene, almost near perfectly, as one of the best scenes in the original film. Then, when you get to the second book, when you get to book 2, Louis reveals that not Louis, Lestat reveals that scene never happened. He never met Louis back in that time period because he was still asleep in the earth, healing all his wounds. And technically, Louis and Lestat do not reconnect until 1985, right before Lestat's big concert. So, this scene in the show is kind of combining those two scenes. And it is, oh, kind of like that quick flashback during the post interview. This is our first time meeting Lestat. Not through Louis' point of view, not through Claudia's diaries, not through Armand's retellings. This is Lestat, pure, but definitely not simple Lestat. And it's such a difference from what we normally see him as. He's not glamored up, he's not in an expensive design suit. He's kind of dirty hair, looking a little nasty, looking completely miserable, practicing on a fake piano, listening to Siri, and it feels. There's something funny about a vampire saying Siri pause. I don't know. I don't know why. It's so funny. It's so funny. And I don't know how many times I have rewatched this scene. The scene of them, I'm not sure, I guess you say the word reconciling, admitting that yeah, we are monsters, that we were horrible to each other, and the fact that, well, Lestat doesn't really hide that he's a jerk, but he doesn't really, we don't really see him apologize, but he's not really hiding it. But Louis does openly apologize for his part in the failures of their relationship. That yeah, he was suffering and he purposely made nights hard for Lestat because he wanted him to suffer along with them. But he's finally embracing the fact that vampirism can be a gift. That the dark gift doesn't always have to be gloom and doom and pain. You can still grow as a person. You still have nights, decades ahead of you to to love, to feel joy. And the fact that Lestat remembers the exact details when Armand told him that Louis when Louis hurt himself, it's a heartbreaking, beautiful scene, and especially when they start speaking about Claudia, how Louis, I how they changed because in the novel and the movie, Claudia was dying. Claudia was kind of like sick from the plague, but also dying because Louis bit her. But here, though, because in the show they changed it, Louis found Claudia dying in a burning building. So when Louis says, "I found her in a fire. I made you turn her just so she can burn 50 years later." And that line where Lestat says, "She looked at me like a child looking for her father, but I was never her father." That was because that is the whole thing with Lestat and Claudia. Lestat was because we're gonna get a little bit more backstory on how Lestat viewed Claudia and when the show or the new show technically comes on, which I think is probably gonna be in April. But the whole thing with Lestat didn't really want Claudia like that. He knew it was a bad idea to make her. And if you're going by the novel, he only did it because he was curious and wanted Louis to stay. He wanted Louis to be happy. And he viewed Claudia as a burden. But the whole thing with Louis, no, Lestat and Claudia is that they were so similar to each other. They were so similar to each other in so many ways. And the biggest one is that they both kind of hate each other. And that was I was never her father. I was never her father. That fucking hurt. I I'm not a parent, but God. And I love the choice of when they start hugging that the music swells and it cuts everything out except for the storm. We if we cut back and we can see them embracing, we can see the hurricane, the winds whipping and destroying the house around them. And it's just like Claudia said in episode 7, the stormy romance of these two toxic dudes. But then we get a very abrupt cut. No, alright. What we call it abrupt? No, it's like a nice little fade, and then we just pause, just like for a few seconds too long. You think you went to commercial break till, boom, we go to a news interview, where we see Daniel has published a book. This book's been out for 4 months now, and we get a little bit of and you get a little bit of idea of the public's reaction to the novel, that it's very popular, and there are people wondering, is it real? Well, we got some people are like, why would Daniel Malloy, just an awesome journalist, write such a Bigfoot chasing book? I got like this was actually kind of my prediction though. Like my prediction for how the season would end would be Daniel at a book signing with the novel and meeting Lestat. So I was kind of right. It did end with Daniel showing off the book, just not in the way I foresaw. And it's a very funny scene, and I think like it's a very funny scene. Like it doesn't really add that much. One thing I do want to talk about, like I hate the design for the novel, for the in-universe novel in the show. It looks so, I don't know, plain, generic. Nothing about it screams a vampires or New Orleans or Paris. It's like red, and then interview with the vampire with a line going between the eyes. Like I don't understand what those. Like that's supposed to be a cool design, a cool cover. I don't like it. I don't like it. It'd been cool if they could have used one of the cover arts for the actual book in our world. But then that's probably lots of public publishing rights and blah blah blah. Drink break. But then we see, oh, we hear all the vampires of the world sending their thoughts to each other, murmuring about Louis, the traitor, he who killed the Paris Coven, kill him, burn him, rip his guts out. But then Daniel's voice starts to mingle with the words, and you're thinking, because you see him on the phone, like, oh, he's talking to Louis on the phone. But wait, Louis doesn't he's not using a phone right now. How is he? And then Daniel takes his glasses off. He's like, oh, he's a vampire. He's a vampire. Okay, so you can actually kind of tell that Daniel was made because if you look at his nails, he has the clawed white nails. But kind of weird though because his eyes, when he takes his glasses off, his eyes look like their regular eyes, but then they kind of change to this orange hue, which is odd because we don't see vampires' eyes changing colors in the show, and they don't really change colors back and forth like that in the novel. But then again, there is a line by Lestat in the in the opening of the second book where he says his eyes can absorb and refract colors like purples and whites. So maybe that's what's happening. His eyes absorb the darkness and then they change back to the orange hue. I don't know. But yeah, we got vampire Daniel Malloy, which is once again another big deviation from the novel because in the novels, Daniel isn't made a vampire until the third book, where he is reintroduced to the story and he is made by Armand after a few years abusive love affair. So we haven't seen that yet. The Devil's Minion. The Devil's Minion is the chapter where we get to re-meet Daniel Malloy, we get to re-meet Armand, and basically just follow them on their weird, effed up love. And we don't get that in the show. I feel like they're gonna redo the Devil's Minion in some strange way. Um, how though for the next show and the third show, I have no idea. But I want to complain about, but I'm gonna let them see. I'm gonna let them see. I've loved most of the changes that they done to the show, so I'm gonna see how they do this. But with Daniel popping up in the Talamasca show and him being a part of the Stats entourage properly in the next show, it I don't know how he's technically gonna be the Devil's Minion, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We have Daniel and Louis speaking, talking to each other, telepathy, and we get the idea that Louis is, I don't know, he's kind of over now because he doesn't really want the money. He doesn't really want to do any more stuff. He's just kind of, I guess, trying to rediscover himself. A version of Louis without Armand, who is just companion for himself now. And I love the little subtle redesigns of Louis' place. It's not all dark and gloom like Armand wanted. There's some colors there now. There's a new couch. There's little hints of furniture. Louis isn't dressed in all black, which It looked good on him. He's more in this. He's in a little bit more colorful outfit. When we go to his little garden room, we see the portrait of Paul hang up. We see Claudia's dress enshrined. Without Armand's influence, his life is already starting to grow brighter than it has been in years. We see a Louis who's starting to live again. And I love his little decoration to all the vampires out in the world. That if you're gonna be cowards and talk about coming here or talk about turning my skyscraper into a prior, well, come on. Here's my address. My windows are kind of strong. They're tinted for people who have sun issues like us. The the hotel staff is human but strong. So come on. If you're that if you're that pissed off at me, then come and do it. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm waiting for you. And it's such a badass way to end the a season. But also just Louis's journey through him telling his story that he's finally starting to live for himself again. It was a good way to end this. It was a good way to end this. Yeah, just me recounting the episode. That's what happens when I don't write a script. When I don't write a script. Ugh, who cares about scripts? Who cares about you forming down your thoughts and opinions in a better manner so you're not just mumbling around for an hour? But yeah, Interview with the Vampire, Season 2, Episode 8. A fantastic way to end the show. Is it my favorite episode between the whole, was it 15 episodes? I probably wouldn't say my favorite. I think the trial is still the best episode. It has to be the best episode. That and episode 4 from season 1, episode 1 of 2, and I need to rewatch the whole show. But all I do is rewatch the show. Whenever I get the chance to rewatch the show, I do it. And I just have it on the background because it is my comfort show for some reason. Further thoughts about season 2 as a whole. I loved it. I thought it was a great way to tell the story. Some things I wasn't a big fan of, like then expanding the idea of the coven, but not going full crazy with it, not letting us fully know each and every little member. The idea of Claudia joining the coven was great. I don't like is we don't get enough of certain characters like Madeline because they go out of the way to reinvent Madeline's character for the show, and she's there in episode 2, but after that she kind of disappears for like 2 or so episodes. Is it 2 or 3 episodes? And we kind of have to force her relationship with Claudia. And while we're not badly acted at all, I feel like it need more time to breathe. I feel like we need to spend a little bit more time with them. Like the whole part where they go away for like a month or two. I feel like that could have been his own whole episode of just Claudia and Madeline just being girlfriends in Germany or wherever the heck they went. And what else I quickly want to talk about? Little changes to the lore of the vampires and how they work, like Estelle sneezing, or the fact that the revenant vampire couldn't heal his eyes that were gouged out by Claudia. And also, it was in this episode. So one of my biggest complaints of the lore changes that they made is that when the vampires go to sleep, they don't, because in the novel, in the novels, when the sun comes up, the vampires don't simply go to sleep. Like their bodies are forced to go to sleep. That they are compelled to sleep by some greater force, or that their bodies are kind of like just shutting down, basically. And but in the show, every time you see them going to sleep, going to coffin, it seems just like you're just going to bed like a normal human would. There's nothing greater or preternatural about it. But they have to shove it in this episode that when a vampire commits himself to coffin, all their senses dull and they basically go comatose. Really? No reason why you have to say that now, because it makes no sense why they wouldn't hear Louis and stop him before starting the fires. It been they said that sometime earlier in season one that when a vampire does eventually does fall asleep, they basically just go comatose. That would have been awesome. But in here, now they just say it, it feels like, oh god, we have to add us in because it's going to make no sense why they don't stop him. In fact, it makes a lot more sense why that Louis says that now, why Lestat had his own hiding room back in season one. Like, yeah, we need to go to sleep. And when we sleep, we have to go into coffins because what if some human comes out and they open the blinds? We could just keep sleeping in bed. They're gonna open the blinds and they're gonna burn us. So we have to have our own little coffin room that's hidden behind the walls. Yeah, but I'm rambling at this point. I just want to talk about this because I'm not able to watch the show for a while, and I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I am going to do a whole. I am planning to do one big video, kind of like I did with the Mayfair witches, where I just talk about the first show, season one, season two, and the little comparisons to it in the novel. I want to do that. Not sure if I can do it. I have some time. Season three does not start till April. Supposedly, it might get delayed. I'm not sure. So, yeah, that's really it. I'm Hanyo, your Demon Cinephile. I love this show. I love the novels, and I can't wait till they come back. Until we get that trailer. Until we get that trailer. If you do not get that trailer in 2 days, I'm giving it and watching the bootleg from Comic-Con. I've been holding out for the official release, but it doesn't seem we're gonna get it for a while. So I might do a breakdown, or I might just wait till the official trailer comes out. So, yep, that's it. That's the end of it. There's nothing more. Bye bye.